So today we're going to be taking the 2017 political quiz. Um, yeah, I like politics, so if you ever want to know more about me, this is how you do it. Even though I'm a small channel with nobody really watching, I don't have a screen recorder because don't have any money. So I'm just going to have to use like the snipping tool for some screenshots. So you just expect just a bunch of screenshots, I guess. So this starts off with national security issues, and the first question that will be asked is, should the president be able to authorize military force against Al-Qaeda without congressional approval? I said no. This is somewhat important to me. The reason why is because, it's kind of hard to describe because the president has control of the armed forces, but so he can technically send troops without congressional approval and engage in military action, which I guess you could call war, without Congress. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I don't think he should have the power to do that because it's just a bad idea. I don't think it's good. Because it can get, without the people, the elected representatives making up decisions, supposedly representing their constituents, it can throw us into conflicts we don't need to get in. Should the U.S. assassinate suspected terrorists in foreign countries? No. We shouldn't do that because you don't know if they are a terrorist or not. You could start an international outcry, and we don't need that right now. And what if we were to do this in an allied country, and it turns out the person was innocent the whole time? Then what do we do? Because that could just cripple our relationship, with other countries, and I don't think that's what we really want at this moment. So we shouldn't do it. Too risky. Not to mention, there's still the whole due process thing. They didn't go through a trial, you didn't come up with proof, it's just not good. Okay. Social issues. What is my stance on abortion? I think this is a more moderate issue. I would say I'm pro-life, but I also, oppose I don't know. Pro-life? Okay, sorry, I'm pro-choice. I kind of mix it up a little bit there. I'm pro-choice in a sense, but I'm also pro-life in a sense. I don't want people to be killed, but then again, I don't know. I'm pro-choice, but I would provide people, with birth control, sexual education, and more social services to reduce the number of abortions. But my heart does go out to potential geniuses who have their lives ended short. So, should the government continue to fund Planned Parenthood? Yes. Yeah, they should. Yeah, I think they definitely should. We shouldn't defund reproductive health services considering how we have a very high rate of teen pregnancies and STDs in this country. We probably shouldn't, keeping that in mind, we probably shouldn't defund programs that, help alleviate some of those numbers. Do you support the legalization of same-sex marriage? Supposed to put a hyphen there, but yes, absolutely. Because marriage, just like the right to form civil unions and have domestic partnerships, is a bond between people, and the state shouldn't prevent people from having bonds. And honestly, I view homosexuality as just a result of nature and biology, and not something intrinsically special or all that different. I say if you allow straight people to get married, you might as well allow gay people to get married too. Because The only difference is they just happen to be under different biological circumstances. And that's really all it is. I don't know why we hold it to such a different standard. And religious people who oppose same-sex marriage, I mean, come on, guys. You don't have the right to enforce your beliefs down everyone else's throat and deny people the right to marry. Should transgender people be allowed to serve in the U.S. military? Yes. Now, I don't like the military. I think they're the American Gestapo. No, they're more of the international Gestapo. And they're out of control. I think they're a bunch of brainwashed, hyper-patriotic people who have good intentions at heart, but honestly are being severely misled. But if someone wants to fight and die to protect this place, or to protect the imperialistic actions of this place, I say let them do it. It's their choice. We shouldn't deny them. But I am saying that the military shouldn't have to pay for their surgeries. The Medicare system should be doing that. And also, as long as they, pass the standard testing to get in, then yeah, I think they should be allowed. Should gay couples have the same adoption rights as straight couples? Yes, as long as they pass the same background checks. Okay. As I said, I don't view homosexuality to be anything particularly special. While it is statistically interesting and it's fun to study, it's not that special intrinsically. In fact, it's not intrinsically special at all. So I think might as well, if you're going to give straight people the same right to adopt children, give the gays the rights too. Because, we already have way too many kids in orphanages and community homes and in the adoption system and the foster care system. We have too many. This could help, shrink those numbers, since the system for foster care and, parentless children is already terrible. Should a business be able to deny service to a customer if their request conflicts with the owner's religious beliefs? No. This is somewhat important, but no, because then, what if your religious beliefs were racist in intent? What if they were, you can't accept a request from a black person? What if they were sexist? You can't accept a request from a woman. What if they were just discriminatory beliefs? Would that be okay? No, and just because you have religious belief doesn't mean people have to suffer on account for them. You are allowed to do what you want over there, but you shouldn't be allowed to negatively affect everyone else because of it. Should gender identity be added to anti-discrimination laws? Absolutely. Freedom from discrimination. We stand for freedom and equality in this country. We're supposed to anyway. Yet gender identity isn't protected by most laws, and it's not fair. Now, I do believe there's only two genders, but honestly, if you identify as a transgender werewolf kin, then I don't care. You should be protected from the same discrimination that anyone else might face. Do you support the death penalty? Absolutely not. Now, some people support it in theory, but think because it's so prone to error, it's probably not a good idea. I'm against the idea in theory as well. From a philosophical, ethical sense, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to kill killers for killing. If you ask me, it's just kind of hypocritical. And also, you do risk the chance of falsely executing innocent people. People can be innocent and they can be slaughtered because they were deemed guilty. And honestly, should the state really have the power to put its own people to death? Is that something that you want a potentially oppressive and tyrannical state to have the power to do? Probably not. I don't think it's a good idea, and I think it's unsophisticated. I think it's primitive, like, the French Revolutionary times where we were just chopping everyone's head off. I don't think we should do it. I think the state shouldn't have that power, and in our modern civilized society, we shouldn't be doing this still. So what's the excuse? I don't think we should have life imprisonment either. I think we should follow a more Norwegian model towards crime and punishment and have a maximum of 21 years of parole. Or chance of parole anyway. But I'll talk about that hopefully later. Sorry. Should universities provide trigger warnings and safe spaces for students? No, because it just creates a bunch of, weak, overly sensitive people. Universities, especially, are supposed to be areas of maturity, areas of learning, and part of learning is learning all the sides to a deal. You shouldn't be protected from different points of view. And trigger warnings kind of are just ineffective. You're warning someone about something they're about to be exposed to. By doing so, you're making them think about it. So then, the thing you're trying to prevent already happens. And I think we shouldn't coddle people. The real world is a harsh place, and there isn't trigger warnings and safe spaces. So we shouldn't be buying into that. We should treat them like adults, not kids, and say, you know what, sorry. If you don't like something, you can go to a different school. If you don't like the point of views being expressed, then go somewhere else. But you shouldn't say, oh, I don't want to ever be challenged ever. Because you don't learn anything if you're not challenged. Our universities are already pretty obsolete anyway. So we probably should work on having more perspectives, more intellectual diversity in our universities, and prepare kids for the harsh reality they're about to face afterwards. Not coddle them so they're completely unprepared. Should health insurance providers be required to offer free birth control? Yes, they should. This is very important because I'm a strong advocate for sexual education and birth control. I'm a strong advocate. I'm sex positive. I don't think we should have to pay too much for birth control if we want to reduce the teen pregnancy rates in this country. We should make it free so everyone can get it. All health insurance providers should be doing it. Some religious ones, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you don't like birth control. Teens are going to have sex. It's gonna happen. You can't stop it. Might as well give them the tools so they know what to do with it when it happens. Should the government support a separation of church and state by removing references to God on money, federal buildings, and national monuments? Yes, but this isn't that important. But I think since the government is supposed to embody secularism, it's not really a good idea to have references to God on federal things. I think it just kind of violates the Establishment Clause. So I don't think we should make steps to removing these references anytime soon, because there are more important issues going on. But yeah, once we get all the important stuff out of the way, this can be one of the things that we do. Should Confederate monuments and memorials be removed from public grounds? No. The reason why... Now, this is also something that's like, I don't really care what you do. You can keep them, and I wouldn't care. You can get rid of them, and I wouldn't care. But if I had to choose a yes or no, yes to get rid of it or no not to, I would choose no. Sure, TJ, from the Amazing Atheist thing, would say that history is not to be enshrined, and I agree. But I feel like making these shrines about history just reminds us of the past. The past is to be learned from, and I do agree with that. But I think to make sure that people don't forget, making these shrines in public spaces, it's kind of necessary to do that. So people actually are aware, so people can look at things and remember the old days and how terrible they were, and, I guess, learn from it. Again, I don't care if you leave them there, I don't care if you get rid of them, but I personally think we should keep them. Should the military allow women to serve in combat roles? Sure. As long as they pass the same physical test as men. Again, if they want to serve in a combat role, go ahead. I don't care. It's your choice. Should businesses be required to have women on their board of directors? No. I don't think that should be a requirement. I think what we should have is political diversity, and also a diversity of opinion, and of intelligence, and, a diversity of people who have skills and knowledge and habits and judgments and values. Having that diversity of mind is more important than having the diversity of genders. So I honestly think allowing women to be on boards of directors can be disastrous. Making it a requirement, because it kind of undermines the diversity of opinion thing. You can trade somebody who has a very diverse and interesting opinion for a woman who just upholds the status quo of the business. And I think that could be detrimental. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? Yeah, sure, I'm pro-freedom. I think people should be able to choose to end their own lives if they're terminally ill anyway. I don't think that should be universal. That they should all be, everyone, regardless of illness, should be allowed to kill themselves. But I do think if you're terminally ill, even if you have a chance of surviving, it's your choice at that point, my friend. Should states be able to display the Confederate flag on government property? No. And again, I guess this kind of contradicts what I just said earlier about enshrining history. But I mean, we've moved forward from that, I guess. I mean, if you're paying federal dollars, and your state is the state that you're paying the federal dollars to gives a Confederate flag which you deem racist, then, yeah, I can understand being mad about that. But then again, since I said that, should I change my answer about the Confederate monument? I mean, okay, I'm not gonna change it, even though it's kind of contradictory. Should marital rape be classified and punished as severely as non-marital rape? Wait, sorry, I was reading something. Should marital rape be classified and punished as severely as... It should all just be punished the same. Okay, who cares if it was in a marriage or not? It should all be classified as rape and be punished the same. Should women be allowed to wear however you pronounce that, that face veil at civics? Let me look that up, actually. Okay, yeah. Yeah, sure, I mean, I don't really care what they wear. Hell, I think we should make public nudity legal. I don't care what you wear or don't wear, it's not my problem. Should Anti-Fa, however you pronounce that, be declared a domestic terrorist organization? I don't really care if they do or don't. I don't know enough about this extremist left-wing thing, but I don't really care about them, so sure, we can classify them as one. Now on to the environmental issues. Should the government increase environmental regulations to prevent climate change? Absolutely, this is like one of the most important things. I think climate change is a national priority and is a global problem. And if we don't want our kids and their grandkids to be living under a hot, wild weather-infested planet with unstable climate patterns and weather patterns. And we don't want, species and our biodiversity to be destroyed. If we really cared about our future as on this planet, we might want to protect it from, try to prevent climate change. Because when you really think about it, we live on a very thin screen on this Earth. It's a surprise we actually survived this long, considering all the things that went wrong and all the things that could have gone wrong. The species has almost been extinct a few times in its history. Remember when that volcano erupted like 70,000 years ago? And it nearly wiped out the primitive human population? We almost went extinct there. Remember when we were so close to nuclear annihilation during the Cuban Missile Crisis? We almost died there. I think we live on a very thin screen because we can't even populate everywhere without tools and modern technology. And considering how the universe is a deadly place to life, it's a surprise that we actually lasted this long. It's a surprise in all the years we've existed, we didn't actually die out. And I think we're just creating another problem for ourselves, and we should do something to prevent it. Because this time, climate change, we have some grasp of control of this situation. Sorry. Okay, so should the U.S. withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement? Absolutely not. I think the Paris Climate Agreement, though, was pretty weak. I admittedly think it shouldn't be more of an agreement, it should be more of a treaty, more of a deal. That all of us countries should really be trying to fight climate change. And what we should do is do X, Y, and Z. I think we should make the climate agreement less of an agreement and more of a mandate. But we shouldn't withdraw from it nonetheless. Should the government stop construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline? Absolutely. Because I don't support oil companies, and I don't think this is a good idea. I think this is going to pollute water supplies, and it's just not a good idea. We shouldn't be moving closer to oil. We should be moving farther away from it. Should the U.S. expand offshore oil drilling? No, because as I said before, we should be moving away from oil and, more towards green energy. Do you support the use of hydraulic fracking to extract oil and natural gas resources? No, because I've said this before like 2 times already. We should be moving away from oil and natural gas and fossil fuels and non-renewable resources. We should be moving closer to green renewable energy and new futuristic versions of energy. Should the government give tax credits and subsidies to the wind power industry? Yes, we should be giving them tax credits and subsidies, because we should be moving towards renewable power. So all the money we spend on subsidies and bailouts for the oil companies should be spent towards renewable energy, because at least it won't destroy the environment. Should disposable products, such as plastic cups, plates, and however you pronounce that other thing, that contain less than 50% of biodegradable material be banned? Yes, we should ban them, but I would go one step farther and ban all disposable products that are not made of at least 75% biodegradable material. I think this is a very important issue. The plastic is too prevalent in our environments. It's so small, it's at the size of molecules, and it ingrains itself in our species. The species here who live here. I think we should move away from using plastic and plates and more towards biodegradable, environmental friendly products and materials, so we can shrinken and eventually eliminate the plastic sphere that this place seems to have. Now on to economic issues. Should the federal minimum wage be raised? It's not enough to do any of those things. I personally think we should do something about that. Having a living wage means a better populace, a stronger middle class. So we should make the living wage by raising it to $15 per hour and adjusting to inflation and cost of living. So places with higher cost of living have higher minimum wages so people can actually afford to live. And so we can tie it to inflation so we don't have this debate again. So it just goes up as it needs to every year. Problem solved. Should welfare recipients be tested for drugs? No. Who cares if they're having drugs? Most likely, if they're using drugs, it's because their life sucks and they need welfare. We should aim to making the welfare state more easily applicable and more comprehensive. More easily accessible to people. Not pick and choose drugs. People's drug use. Should the government make cuts to public spending in order to reduce international debt? I think we should increase public spending. I think we should reprioritize the money we spend. I think that's a good idea. But I also think that we should, increase taxes on the wealthy, decrease military spending, and, I guess find other ways to pay back our national debt. Maybe stop throwing ourselves into costly conflicts, for starters. Should the U.S. raise taxes on the rich? Of course we should. The rich make too much money. Wealth and income inequality in this country is rampant, and it's one of the worst in the world. Well, I mean, not the worst. I wouldn't say in the top 10, but it's certainly bad for a developed country. So we should take steps to do that by redistributing the wealth and using these taxes to pay for programs to help people who aren't very rich. Should employers be required to pay men and women the same salary for the same job? This is kind of questionable. I mean, if you set the same salary for the same work, sure. But I mean, for the same job, regardless of any other variables, is probably not a good idea. Now, in general, should men and women be paid the same for the same work? Or, equal pay for equal work? Yes, absolutely. But I don't think the pay gap, while I do believe it exists and while I do believe it's a problem, the thing about it is, I don't blame it on discrimination. I blame it on the differences in work behavior and occupational choices between men and women. I don't think the gender wage gap is a myth, like some people might have you to believe. It does exist, it is real, but it's how you come to that conclusion that I differ from the regressive left contemporaries and the anti-regressive left contemporaries and non-contemporaries. I think we should encourage women to pursue occupations that are male-dominated and higher-paying fields. Should there be more restrictions or fewer restrictions on current welfare benefits? Fewer restrictions. People who need their help should get the help that they need. We should increase the welfare state and provide for social programs and have it be equally accessible to all. Should should the U.S. raise or lower the tax rate for corporations. Raise. Definitely. I would make it 35% compared to what it is now is 9%. 35% I would definitely do that. I would tax corporate offshore income by 28%. I would lower taxes on smaller businesses, but definitely raise them on larger ones. We should use this money, again, to pay for aforementioned social programs and benefits, like free college and universal health care and improving the education system and investing in infrastructure and all that stuff. Should businesses be required to provide paid leave for full-time workers during the birth of a child or a sick family member? Businesses should be required to provide for at least 16 weeks of paid family and medical leave and at least 3 weeks of paid vacation. Now, I would now, of course, I would say this, because we're the only country in the modern world that does not have paid leave. There's only 3 countries that doesn't do it, and the United States is one of them. I think for smaller companies, they can't afford it. The government should compensate. For countries that can partly afford it, it should be split between business and state. And for companies that make enough money to definitely afford it, they pay for it completely. But I think we should join pretty much every other modern country and have paid leave, paid vacation time. Do you support a universal basic income program? Yes, absolutely. Now, part of the problem I do think about universal basic income is it might encourage laziness. You need to incentivize work. You would be giving a check to people who don't need it, like the wealthy. And also, it's very costly. I did the math. It would cost at least $623 billion to give every adult in this country, I think, about $670. That's a lot of money. And assuming you can even scrap up the money to pay for such a program, is it really a good idea to spend $963 billion on giving everyone $670 a year or something? Is it really a good idea? If you have that money, you probably could spend it on something more important. I think if we're going to do a universal basic income program, it could be paid for community-wise or through the private means, because the public means probably shouldn't be funding it. Do you believe labor unions help or hurt the economy? Help. I think we should unionize this country. I think we should increase the power and influence of labor unions. Now, there is the risk of protecting lazy, unproductive workers. I understand that risk. But protecting the middle-class man, the working-class man, the poor man from the greedy capitalist is probably something that we should try to do. And labor unions are part of doing that. Should the president, offer tax breaks to individual companies to keep jobs in the United States? I don't know. I don't really know how I would respond to this. Should the government offer tax breaks to the individual companies to keep jobs in the U.S.? No. Because we can always, there will always be jobs. You can always use this opportunity to create new jobs. But this is probably, very unimportant to me. Should the government prevent mega mergers of corporations that could potentially control a large percentage of the market share within its industry? Yes, absolutely. We don't need too big to fail institutions. We shouldn't have someone who operates too high of a percentage of a certain market share. I think we should definitely try to end monopolies and or prevent them from coming into existence, because assuming they do fail, which they probably will, it could be detrimental to too many. Should the U.S. continue to participate in the North American Free Trade Agreement? Absolutely not. I think it's bad for the middle class. I think it's bad for working people. And I think we should change our trade policy to something more of exporting based. And instead of trading workers, we should be trading items that we don't need or things that we want. Should the government increase the tax rate, on profits earned from the sales of tax, bonds, and real estate? Yes, because the more money the better, the more money we can spend on, as said, free college, universal health care, and other programs that people might like, or need. Should the government use economic stimulus to aid the country during times of recession? Absolutely. Obama's stimulus package was a brilliant idea. It lifted us out of recession, it made millions of jobs, it was what we needed. So if we are in times of recession, the government should make a stimulus package. Should the government require businesses to pay salaried employees making up to $460K per year half time and a half for overtime hours? Well, that's an odd question. Yes, if you work overtime, then... Wait, hang on. Yes, the government should do more to protect workers' rights. If you work overtime, you should get paid extra for doing so. Should the current and state tax be increased? Should the current estate tax rate be decreased? No. We should make it a progressive tax. The more we could tax, the more we tax. Again, more money the better. Should the Federal Reserve Bank be audited by Congress? Yes, they're in my opinion, they're unstable, potentially dangerous. We need to make sure we have a chokehold on them. Should the U.S. increase, I don't know how you pronounce that, tariffs on imported goods from China? Sure. Why not? I mean, I think we should be trading more with our people and trading more with other nations. Should pension payments be increased for retired government workers? Yes. Sure. I think we should work towards securing pensions since they're falling out of favor in this country. Do you support the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP? No. That is horrific for the middle class. It is terrible. It rewards countries that just implemented Sharia law. Not a good idea. The TPP needs to go. We need to renegotiate our trade deals and our partnerships and stop all of this shipping jobs overseas. Should the government subsidize farmers? Sure, yeah. As a temporary measure to stabilize prices, and also, we should work towards shifting our agricultural system to more of a sustainable, futuristic, advanced, and healthy system. We should integrate more technology into our agriculture, and not, the tools that you think of, more futuristic forms of agriculture. We should subsidize farmers and change the farming profession to something more professional and more highly favored. Speaking of highly favored, would you favor an increased sales tax in order to reduce property taxes? Nah. I think we should increase property taxes, sales taxes a decent amount. Should U.S. citizens be allowed to save or invest their money in offshore bank accounts? Nope. I think this just goes off to the corporate offshore thing. Probably not a good idea. People should keep their money, have to keep their money here so they can pay the appropriate taxes. Should pension plans for federal, state, and local government workers be transitioned into... But no. Pension plans, we should follow a Norwegian model and have it, more public. I mean, wait, hang on, I think I misread the question. Should pension plans be... Actually, yeah, I still think the public should... I don't think the public should manage the pension, but I think the government should hold the pension, if that makes any sense. You should have a safe place to put it at, but I do think it's your money to do what you want with. So, I mean... yeah, sure, why not? Should an in-state sales tax apply to online purchasers of in-state buyers from out-of-state sellers? What an odd way to phrase a question. You probably could have said it differently if you wanted to make more sense. So, you're in-state, I'm an online buyer, right? I'm in-state, and I'm purchasing something from out-of-state. Should the sales tax apply to the out-of-state purchase? Would have made a lot more sense. No. I mean... no. It shouldn't. Out-of-state sellers should have to pay the taxes of their own state, and that's just... Should the government classify Bitcoin as legal currency? Yeah, I like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a nice thing. I think it's the first step towards a cyber currency, and we should do it. Make it legal. So that would be nice. Domestic policy issues. The interesting bits. Should there be more restrictions on the current process of purchasing a gun? Yes. I think we should require background checks, psychological testing, and training. I think this is just what I call common sense legislation. It's something I use to describe things that are just so undeniable, so unequivocal. It's just common sense to implement. Gun restrictions is just common sense. If you're a mentally ill, psychotic schizophrenic who can't keep in touch with reality and is prone to delusions and magical beliefs that you can potentially harm others, you shouldn't be given a gun. Guns themselves can't do anything. It's the people who hold them that can cause harm. We should put more restrictions on them so we don't have crazy criminals or psychotic, unbelievably mentally ill, or unbelievably untrained individuals having guns. We also should definitely ban assault rifles. There's no point in having them. Should local police increase surveillance and patrol of Muslim neighborhoods? No, we should have more community oversight of the police. And this is just kind of discriminatory, I think. Oh, because they're Muslim, we must watch them. No, I think that's a bad idea. Are you in favor of decriminalizing drug use? Yes, I think we should, legalize, tax, and regulate substances. I think we should, legalize, tax, and regulate substances, not make everything available, but, something that's, just regulate the market. Legalize and tax. If you want to put something in your body, you should be able to. It's not my concern. If you're addicted, sure. Of all drug users, only 80 to 90% are moderate users. So they're not doing anything wrong. They can still have a job and a good relationship and a good family life and have a good relationship with their kids. They can still be fine. They're just a moderate user of drugs. I think with that in mind, and the really small number that are actually addicted, we should just decriminalize it already. Because, criminalizing drugs is just a bad idea. It pushes the market underground. I mean, it destroys jobs, creates crime, raises prison populations, which costs the taxpayers more money to maintain. It just increases crime, increases corruption, drives markets underground, destroys jobs, and destroys honest living. So honestly, I think we should have learned from Prohibition that cracking down on substances that are still in high demand doesn't stop people from using them. You can't take away the supply without taking away the demand, or you're just going to have all the bad things I just listed before. Do you support affirmative action programs? Yeah, sure. But I do think that people shouldn't be favored because of their race. I think these programs go a little bit too far and take underqualified people just because of their ethnicity. But then again, you do want protection from potential racism on admissions boards. So, sure, I do support them, but I don't think we should let people in just because of their skin tone, but because of their ability. And if we deny somebody if we accept a more qualified and more able white person over a less qualified and less able black person, we shouldn't call it out for being racist because it's not. It's just a practical thing to do. Choose the more qualified person who happens to be white than the less qualified person who happens to be black. Should it be illegal to burn the U.S. flag? Who cares? No, it shouldn't be illegal. It's the flag. If you don't like this place and you want to see it burned, then sure, go ahead and burn it. I would burn the flag even. I don't really care. If you want to burn the American flag, I don't know why we say that's not patriotic. Who cares? Patriotism is just a terrible thing anyway. It just makes brainwashed, brain-dead people. Should people on the no-fly list be banned from purchasing guns and ammunition? Well, the no-fly list, we don't actually know what it is. We don't know who's on it. We don't know if it's specific or arbitrary. We don't know if the people on this supposed no-fly list are actually bad people. So honestly, I don't know. I'm just gonna leave this question blank because I don't know. I don't know enough about this no-fly list and mass to make a decision about it. Should victims of gun violence be allowed to sue firearm dealers and manufacturers? No. They shouldn't. Because there should be responsible usage of guns. If you're a victim of gun violence, you should blame the person who committed the act against you, not the person who sold the weapon to them. Should there be term limits set for members of Congress? Now, usually, I used to say, no, there shouldn't be term limits at all. I think if the people want somebody, they should be able to have them. But then again, I'm like, it's like the same thing with the Supreme Court. Why should they serve for life? Because don't you want people, the selection, the interpretations of the Constitution, to be according to what's relevant now and wasn't relevant 30 years ago when they took the position? Don't you want it to reflect contemporary values? Don't you want it to reflect what's general now? Don't you want the Constitution to be interpreted by modern standards and not 30 years ago standards? So the thing goes kind of for Congress. Do you still want to be, like, have these people who are stuck in the past or have people with new ideas have a chance of competing. So should there be term limits set for members of Congress? Yeah, I think there should. Although I don't want there to be, it probably is for the best. Should the NSA be allowed to collect basic metadata of citizens' phone calls, just numbers, timestamps, and call durations? No, I think this is just a violation of civil liberties. I don't like the NSA. I think they're basically 1984's Big Brother spying on everybody, and we should put a stop to it. Because once you authorize for basic information, you basically just authorized for other information as well. It's a slippery. It's like a slippery slope, I guess. It just falls apart. The Sport Patriot Act. No, I think it was basically a big giving the finger to constitutional rights. I think it was horrific. It shouldn't have been passed. And I think it just authorized more civil liberty violations in the future. Should internet service providers be allowed to speed up access to popular websites that pay higher rates at the expense of slowing down access to less popular sites that pay lower rates? No, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's like the whole net neutrality thing. Once you authorize that, what else can they do? Can't they just stop any competitor? And more importantly, how are less popular sites supposed to become more popular? For less popular sites. I think less popular websites won't have a chance to compete if their access to them is being slowed down, so I don't think internet service providers should be allowed to pick and choose. I think we should all just treat data equally and have, similar speeds. Should the redrawing of congressional districts be controlled by an independent, non-partisan committee? Yes. We should also switch to a different voting system. I think this brings up the whole gerrymandering issue. Yeah, it should be from an independent, non-partisan commission. We should also change, while we're talking about voting, we might as well change the voting system and move away from first past the post and electoral college and more towards proportional representation. Should the government be allowed to seize private property with reasonable compensation for public or civic use? Yeah, sure. If they give them reasonable compensation for it. Not just take it and give them nothing else. Should the government raise the retirement age for Social Security? No, the government should lower the retirement age and make universal Social Security more applicable to everyone. Should the U.S. government grant immunity to Edward Snowden? Yes. We should protect our whistleblowers who point out our unethical dealings, not punish them and do all this mess with them. Should the government pass laws which protect whistleblowers? Just said the answer. We should protect our whistleblowers who call out unethical practices by organizations, media, and the state. We should protect them, not go, no, you can't call us out on our mess. Should the military upgrade Air Force One? No, there's no point. It's already good enough. We should focus our money on more important things. Now on to healthcare. Do you support the Obamacare, basically? Do you support Obamacare? Yes, I do, but I do think a mandatory single-payer system would definitely be a better option. I think Obamacare was the watered-down version of universal health care, and Obama should have taken the chance of the supermajority of Democrats in Congress and pushed for single-payer legislation. I think this was just kind of a It's a conservative ideal that was packaged as a liberal ideal. Do you support the legalization of marijuana? Yes, we should legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana instead of criminalizing it. So yes, because the money we can get could help pay for things. Should the government regulate the prices of life-saving drugs? Absolutely. People shouldn't have to pay more than $300 on drugs out of pocket. We should have open negotiations with the pharmaceutical companies to negotiate the drug prices so the American people aren't being completely screwed over in the unbelievable prices. Should health insurers be allowed to deny coverage to individuals who have a pre-existing condition? Nope, they shouldn't. Should the federal government increase funding on healthcare for lower-income individuals, or Medicaid? Yes, but then again, as I said before, we should switch to a more single-payer healthcare system so everybody just has quality healthcare free of cost. And now to the question that really just sums this up, to me anyway. Do you support a single-payer healthcare system? Absolutely. The United States, according to the World Health Organization, is ranked 37th in healthcare efficiency. We have high levels of infant mortality and child mortality. Too many people here die from being denied basic coverage. Too many people become bankrupt from medical bills. Healthcare is a right of the people, not a privilege of the people, and everyone should be able to have quality care so people don't die, because nobody should be dying of preventable causes. Should the government increase funding for mental health research and treatment? Yes. I believe in a single-payer healthcare system. I believe we should cover all health-based expenses that includes dental, visual, auditory, and mental health. I think we should provide everybody with a therapist, or I guess the ability to go to see a therapist for free. To have a crisis interventionist. I think having access to addiction and mental health services and treatment and research is important, and the government should increase funding and guarantee mental health care as a right. We should also work to making psychiatric wards less like prisons and more like rehabilitation centers. Should there be more or less privatization of veterans' health care? Less. I think we should help our veterans and pay for their health care publicly. Now, they do have we should give them the private option through private insurance, but also have a public option as well. Veterans should receive high-quality health care for the service they have done for our country. I don't hate soldiers, I just hate the idea of our military. Should the federal government be allowed to negotiate drug prices for Medicare? Yes. The government should definitely do so. Canada does it. We should do it too. We shouldn't have ridiculously high drug prices here. Now on to criminal issues. Should police officers be required to wear body cameras? Yes, because it would protect the safety and rights of police officers and citizens. I think the police are, as TJ put it, the American Gestapo that's out of control. Yeah, the police is the American Gestapo that's out of control. I think we should have more community oversight of the police. I think we should hold them more accountable and make sure they don't abuse citizens and abuse their power. Should convicted criminals have the right to vote? Yes, I think they should. I think even if you're a criminal, even if you're in prison or not, policy does affect you too, so you should have the right to participate in the political process regardless of your criminal status. I feel as though I don't understand why taking away the right to vote is something that's so... Should prisons ban the use of solitary confinement for juveniles? Absolutely. Solitary confinement, I pretty much think, is torture. The studies have been done, it can cause severe problems to the brain, both psychologically and physically. It can change the way the brain is shaped. We should focus more towards rehabilitation and less on punishment, especially for our juveniles, who shouldn't have been given torture for their crimes. Should non-violent prisoners be released from jail in order to reduce overcrowding? If they're non-violent, yes, they should be released. They shouldn't be in jail. Electoral issues. Should foreigners currently residing in the United States have the right to vote? Yes, because even though they may not be a citizen, again, policy does affect them too. Policy does affect them too. We should definitely give them the right to vote if you live here, even if you're not a citizen. I mean, if you're going to be a long-term... I mean, you have to live in this country for at least 5 years, though. I mean, if you're going to be living here permanently or for a long term, but you're still not a citizen, you should still be able to vote. Should a photo ID be required to vote? No. I mean, I could care less if you want it there to be, but I do think we should, like, when it comes to registering to vote, we should just, once people reach the voting age, automatically register them so we don't have to worry about this mess again. Should the Electoral College be abolished? Absolutely. The Electoral College sucks. It's disproportional. It's against the idea of democracy. You can technically win with only having like 22% of the popular vote if you're clever enough. It allows you to override the will of the people whenever you don't like the result. Should foreign lobbyists be allowed to raise money for American elections? No. Because you don't know what foreign interest might have in mind with interfering with the election. There shouldn't be lobbyists in general. I think they just disrupt the democratic process. Should there be a limit to the amount of money a candidate can receive from a donor? Yes. We need to do more on preventing finance corruption. So we can stop having these boring and terrible bought and paid for candidates who don't represent the people. Should the minimum voting age be lowered? Yes, I would make it 16. I used to not think so, but I think getting people involved in the process early is beneficial. And I think having the youth opinion is also important. Should political candidates be required to release their recent tax returns to the public? Yes, they should. We should know what's going on here. Should corporations, unions, and non-profit organizations be allowed to donate to political parties? No. Again, it just creates bought and paid for candidates and politicians, and it disrupts the democratic process. It just creates the oligarchy that we live under, not the democracy that we're supposed to live under. Should a politician who has been formally convicted of a crime be allowed to run for office? That's a hard one. Sure, they should be allowed to run for office. I guess if they want, because again, they should have a say in political decisions. Should there be a 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials from becoming lobbyists after they leave the government? Just make it a lifetime ban. There shouldn't be lobbyists in Congress. We need new ideas, not carcasses from the past. Education. Something that I am very passionate about. And something that this country does not really do anything about. Do you support increasing taxes for the rich in order to reduce interest rates for student loans? Yes, and increase government funding so that every student receives a free college education. We should abolish student loans and pay for it, and also pay for having free college, so we can make our country competitive again, so we can compete in the global market. Do you support the Common Core national standards? I support the concept, but not the current implementation. I don't think the Common Core is watered down. I don't think it's good for students or people. I think the idea of having a national standard for education is a good idea, but I think the current standards are just bad. Foreign policy issues. And let me just emphasize how small the education issue section is. There's only 2 questions. I think that comes to show that most politicians now don't seem to care much about education. And, no, don't worry, there's plenty more questions to be had. Now we're on to foreign policy. Oh, jeez, foreign policy. Oh, gosh, this is where most people are more moderate on. The foreign policy questions are absurd, but let's just go through this. Yes. Should the U.S. accept refugees from Syria? We should accept all refugees from Syria. At least all ones who pass the vetting process should be allowed here. All I see with refugees from war-torn nations is just simply, hey, a potential labor force. There are 13.4 million Syrians in need of humanitarian aid, according to the United Nations. If they pass the vetting process, they should be allowed in. All of them. Not a certain number, just the ones who pass the process. So we can create more jobs, and we can put people in industries that we want to further develop. I think immigrants strengthen the country. They don't weaken it, like some people might have you to believe. Should foreign terrorism suspects be given constitutional rights? Yes, everybody should be given a fair trial and constitutional rights, and we should definitely shut down Gitmo. Should the government increase or decrease military spending? Decrease. Okay, the budget is bloated. They don't need all of that money. If we were to just gradually cut it by, say, 50%, we could spend that money on something actually important. Should the military be allowed to use enhanced interrogation techniques, also known as torture, to gain information from suspected terrorists? No. Never. Freedom from torture, my friends. Freedom from torture. Should every 18-year-old citizen be required to provide at least 1 year of No. No, if you're 18, you shouldn't be required to provide at least 1 year of military service. Because I don't like the military, and I don't want to be a part of that organization. I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in wars. I don't believe my life is expendable. I don't believe you can just violate my pacifist views in my disbelief in your wars and your imperialist. I shouldn't have to die on the accord of your imperialistic actions. I shouldn't have to die on the accord of the military-industrial complex and the uber-patriotic people. I want to be independent from that. I believe the right to participate, but also the right not to participate if you don't want to. I don't want to die, so no. Should the U.S. remain in the United Nations? Yeah, of course. They get most of our funding from us anyway. Should the U.S. continue to support Israel? We should give equal support to Israel and Palestine. I support that two-state solution, and I do think while we should definitely help Israel, we should help Palestine too. Because the Israelis pretty cruel to the Palestinians, and I think we should do something about it. Should the U.S. conduct missile strikes against North Korea in order to destroy their long-range missile and nuclear weapons capability? No. TJ might have you to believe that striking North Korea and destroying things and turning it into a smothering, whatever he said, crater. But I think that's a stupid idea, honestly. It's not as simple as that. It's way more complicated. There are way too many military powers involved, like China and Russia, for example. Way too many lives at stake. Way too many uncertainties. Like, we don't know what North Korea really is capable of. We don't even know they don't have something aimed towards Seoul right now. So the moment we attack, they press that button, the thing goes. I think we shouldn't test the waters of North Korea's abilities. We should aim towards diplomatic solutions to our problems if possible. We shouldn't go towards military strikes immediately. I think there's just way too many powers involved. There are way too many variables involved, and it's just way too uncertain and just not worth the risk. So for those people who think you should strike North Korea with missiles or anything are just stupid. No, that's a dumb idea. I wish it was as simple as that, but it's not. Should the military fly drones over foreign countries to gain intelligence and kill suspected terrorists? No, you're violating their airspace. Get out of there. Should the U.S. formally declare war on ISIS? No. Our involvement in all of this war on terrorism just created more terrorists through our mistreatment of the people who live there. That just create more jihadists. I think the whole U.S. intervention approach of thrust ourselves into every conflict ever, into every country we don't like, is just a bad idea. We're just going to create more terrorism. ISIS came from the Iraq problem. And who caused the Iraq problem? The United States of America. The United States created the very terrorists that killed thousands. I think the United States needs to just stop with all of this war and just step back, please. Should the U.S. increase or decrease foreign aid spending? Increase? Yes. But there is a problem with this. If people in America can't have clean water, yet we can afford to give other countries foreign aid, yet we can't improve things here, that's a problem. If whole counties in America have no doctors and no hospitals, we have a problem. If people can work full-time and still not have enough money to pay their bills, we have a problem. So I don't see how we should... I would increase foreign aid spending, but we should definitely help the situation here at home. Okay. Should the U.S. remain in NATO? Oh my, is that a complicated issue. I think we should remain in NATO, but the problem is, I think the European powers rely way too much on the U.S. for defense. I think the EU should take this chance of vulnerability as a wake-up call to develop their own centralized military by combining all the forces of all the countries. They would be a serviceable military power. They would be third in the world, enough to protect themselves from a potential invasion. You can't rely on the United States, who, I might add, is very unreliable, to protect you all the time. They should take matters into their own hands. Europe should, anyway. Do you support President Obama's move to lift the trade and travel embargo on Cuba? that voice crack. Embargo? Sorry. On Cuba? The President Obama... I think it was the right move. I think this whole stop talking to Cuba foreign policy nonsense just harmed people who lived in Cuba. I think we should open up communication, increase trade, increase foreign aid spending, and improve our relationship with this country. Because the move to lift that trade embargo and, travel embargo caused Cuba to legalize small businesses, something that hasn't been done before. So I think it just helped Cubans. I think we should move towards that direction, making a friendlier relationship with Cuba, our former land. And while we're at it, close down Gitmo, and stop violating Cuba's land too. Should the U.S. send ground troops into Syria to fight ISIS? No. It's been clearly established that ISIS was just created out of us intervening in Iraq. I think if we do the send more troops into Syria, we're just going to create a different terrorist organization, and it's not going to be good. Well, I also have these grapes here too that I will be eating. Yum, yum, yum. Yeah. Oh, no, there's seeds in these grapes. Okay. Okay, do you support the military offensive against ISIS in the Iraq city of No. I think it might just create more terrorists, honestly. So, now that my answer is nope. No. Yeah. Should the U.S. provide military aid to Saudi Arabia during its concept of a conflict with Yemen? No. We shouldn't be providing human rights abusers with aid. Besides, the Arabians are rich enough to pay for their own conflicts. And I think we should be working to help protecting Yemen from their mistreatment by the Saudi Arabians. Rabies. Okay, anyway. Should the U.S. continue NSA surveillance of its allies? No. Those are your allies. You should trust them. If you don't trust them, are they really your allies? I think you just might weaken your relationship with them. If you don't trust them enough, you have to constantly watch them. Should the U.S. provide military assistance to defend Ukraine from Russia? No. I think we should work towards more diplomatic solutions to get Russia away from Ukraine. But we shouldn't do this military assistance because it might just spark another war. Should the U.S. defend other NATO countries that maintain a low military defense budget relative to their GDP? I think we should continue to defend them, but we really might want to the Europeans really need to consider their military at the moment. They really want to rely on the United States for their defense. I think we should definitely renegotiate the NATO deals. I think we should definitely tell the EU, it's time you make your own military for once. It's time Europe have its own military to protect itself from the other worldly powers who might not like them. I think we should definitely basically just tell the EU and NATO, stop relying on us for everything. Sorry, but we definitely want to move away from our military having way too much money. That's what the United States would say. And because we want to do that, we're going to have to stop protecting all of you people. But we don't want to leave you completely stranded. So here is a plan for what you could do with your own military. Make it better than our military. We'll work with you. We'll fight for you. We'll fight with you. But we need to stop all of this over-reliance on us mess. I think NATO countries and European powers in general should have a centralized military system so we can stop relying on the U.S. Should the U.S. prevent Russia from conducting airstrikes? What can the U.S. really do to prevent them from conducting airstrikes in Syria? Not much. So I'm just going to leave that blank. Should the U.S. cancel production of the Sorry, something happened. Should the government continue production of the F-35 fighter? No. It's a waste of money. Costs way too much. Way too much, and it's just a waste. Now on to immigration. Should the U.S. build a wall alongside the southern border? No, it is a waste of money. It's way too costly. And I think we should work to improve our relationship with Mexico and improve Mexico. If you want to keep people out of the country, if you don't want Mexicans from coming here, why don't you make Mexico a better place to live so they don't want to have to come here? The reason why they keep trying to flee is because it sucks to live in Mexico. Now, right now, there are more people returning to Mexico than there are people going to Mexico. But if you want to stop this illegal immigration from Mexico and make Mexico a better place to live so they don't want to have to leave, should immigrants be deported if they commit a serious crime? No, they should go through the same process and be incarcerated here. Should illegal immigrants have access to government-subsidized healthcare? Yes. Now, I am concerned with the cost of this, but I do think that even if you don't live here, if you're an illegal immigrant and you're just dying on the street or just having some medical problem that needs to be dealt with immediately, you shouldn't have to worry about, no healthcare for you, sonny. You are within our grounds, within our borders, then you should have access to healthcare. Should Muslim immigrants be banned from entering the country until the government improves its ability to screen out potential terrorists? No, because it's discriminatory to ban people because of their religious beliefs. Should illegal immigrants be offered in-state tuition rates at public colleges within their residing states? No, I think we should, provide for their tuition. Should children of legal immigrants be granted legal citizenship? Absolutely. Absolutely. Should sanctuary cities receive federal funds? Yes, if they're a city that's in America, they should receive federal funds. Should immigrants be required to learn English? Actually, yeah, I think they should, so they can more easily communicate with Americans and navigate this country easier. I believe we should integrate immigrants into our society, not exclude them. And part of integrating is speaking the same tongue. Should there be a temporary ban on all immigrants into the United States? No, because that would just cause an intellectual brain drain. It's potentially discriminatory, and also immigrants help the country, they don't hurt it. Should immigrants be required to pass a citizenship test to demonstrate a basic understanding of our country's language, history, and government? I think no, because most citizens couldn't even pass the citizenship test. I think we should work towards do the more, Austrian, Japanese model of integration instead of having a stupid test. If most American citizens couldn't pass the citizenship test, what makes you think an immigrant could? No offense, immigrants, but honestly, let's be honest here, that's just not fair. Should local law enforcement be allowed to detain illegal immigrants for minor crimes and transfer them to federal immigration authorities? If they commit a crime, any crime at all, they should just be dealt with like any citizen on a local level. Shouldn't be sent to the federal government, because the federals have more important concerns. Sorry. So, no. Should the U.S. increase restrictions on its current border security policy? No. I think we should work towards helping Mexico, not spending money on borders. Should working illegal immigrants be granted temporary amnesty? Yes, we should create a path to a simple path to citizenship for immigrants with no criminal record. So yeah, I think we should give them amnesty. Should the U.S. increase or decrease the amount of temporary work visas given to high-skilled immigrant workers? What's a visa? Should... Yeah, we should definitely increase. Should immigrants to the United States be allowed to hold dual citizenship status? I really have nothing against dual citizenship, so sure, if they want to. But it's less important. Transportation. Should the government increase spending on public transportation or decrease? And yes, we should definitely increase it. Our public transportation system is quite bad, honestly, and very ineffective, and definitely harms productivity. Should the government require children to be vaccinated for preventable diseases? Oh wait, sorry. This is the science section now. Now on to science issues. Okay. Should the government require children to be vaccinated for preventable diseases? Yes, absolutely. All children should be vaccinated against preventable diseases to reduce child mortality and to protect children. Should producers be required to label genetically engineered foods? No. I mean, sure. I wouldn't care if you were forced to label it. I mean, I can't see the harm in that. But then again, I do think that people who think that GMOs are bad are just wrong. Because I do think the food that you eat was genetically engineered. Bananas. Have you ever seen a wild banana before? Probably not. Have you ever seen a wild apple before? Probably not. You know, all of these foods have been engineered like thousands of years ago by people through selective breeding. It's not actually the natural version of itself. So, now you basically just have new tools of selective breeding. Now you can engineer plants more easily, and we're like, I think they're a promising solution to ending world hunger, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. So, no, you shouldn't be required to. Do you support the use of nuclear energy? Nope. Nuclear energy, while it has its efficiencies, is just way too hazardous for the environment. It can potentially blow up and cause severe problems. I don't think we should aim toward nuclear power, but more towards other, safer options. Should the government fund space travel? Yes, and we should drastically increase NASA's current budget to about $150 billion at the least. Because I think space is beautiful, we want to explore it, we're in the golden age of astronomy, we're a sitting duck on this place, we might as well expand and explore. Imagine all the discoveries that could be had with such. And that was the final question. So, who was your favorite candidate for the 2020 presidential election? Bernie Sanders is my favorite candidate. So, now that we're done with this, let's show my beautiful, wonderful results. This ought to be good. So I took the ISideWith quiz. This has been kind of fun. Okay, it's done now. Okay, let's see. According to this, I side with Jill Stein on most issues. So 92% Jill Stein, 90% Hillary Clinton, surprisingly, and everyone else is just not even noteworthy. So, according to this, the things that are most important to me are the environment, education, healthcare, and science. And more important to me things are, crime, the economy, foreign policy, domestic policy, and elections. And things that are somewhat important to me are just social and, immigration. According to this thing, I am a left-wing authoritarian. That's not really true. I think I'm a left-wing libertarian. I'm in favor of personal freedom. I don't think we should mandate things, but yeah, I'm definitely left-wing in my opinion. I'm not a centrist. I hate centrism anyway. So, yes, I am very environmentalism. It says here that I'm pretty socialist, and yeah, I am. I think there should be more of a social market economy. I think capitalism sucks, and we should try to do something about it. According to this, I support decentralization. Yeah, I kind of do, but I do like a strong federal government. It says here that I believe that the government should provide economic assistance to stabilize the economy. Yeah, okay. It says here that I am in favor of big government. Absolutely, I do want a large government. I like the government. Or I like the idea of government anyway. It says here I'm in favor of regulation, and I agree. Pacifism, I definitely am a pacifist. I don't believe in these conflicts. Popularism, I believe we should go away from elitism. So, you side towards, according to them, authoritarian means you believe that the government's role is to provide stability, equality, and opportunity for all of its citizens. This theme is more important to you. Yeah, I guess if that's your definition, then I guess I am an authoritarian. According to this, I am very far to the left. I agree. It says here I'm in favor of collectivism. I believe that policy should protect and support the best interests of the citizens. I agree. Protectionism. I don't think globalization is bad, but I do think protectionism is good. I am a progressive according to this thing. I do reject tradition in the past, and we should work to improving. So according to this, I side towards isolationism. I'm not an isolationist at all. I'm against empiricalism. I'm a non-interventionist person. According to this, I'm pretty on tough versus tender. I'm pretty tender. I believe in a more compassionate, empathetic rehabilitation approach to criminals. I'm in favor of privacy versus security. I'm in favor of multilateralism, it appears. I'm politically correct. It says here I support political correctness, which I don't. I think political correctness is basically newspeak, and is detrimental. I think we should, who cares if you offend people? I don't believe in political correctness. I don't believe in it. I think it's just, as I said before, newspeak. Multicultural. So yeah, this thing got one thing wrong. Or actually got a few things quite wrong. But anyway, multiculturalism versus a simulation. We should celebrate and embrace cultural diversity. I mean, cultural diversity does come closer to diversity of opinion than anything else, so sure. Globalization. Yes, I do believe in globalism. Secular. Yes, I am very secular. I believe there should be less there should be less religious interference with, I guess, things. So yeah, I guess that's my ISideWith quiz. That was pretty interesting, I must say. If I were to rate this on how accurate it was, I would say about about accurate, sure, I'll put that. Yeah, that was my ISideWith quiz. I hope you learned a lot about me and stuff like that. So, yeah. This has been fun. I hope to see you all soon. Yeah. Okay, bye-bye.